What if the man who murdered your country's greatest hope is now remembered as its last symbol of order? What if the visionary who dreamed of justice and freedom was erased, while his betrayer became a father figure? This is not fiction. This is the story of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a nation rich in diamonds and uranium, soaked in blood and betrayal, and at its heart, two names that haunt history. In the violent winds of Africa's decolonialization, few stories are as tragic, as symbolic, and as brutally unfinished as that of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And at the heart of this drama are two men: Patrice Lumumba, the firebrand independence leader who dreamed of a sovereign and dignified Africa, and Mobutu Sese Seko, the cunning military man who betrayed that dream, only to wear its costume for 3 decades. When the Congo gained independence from Belgium in 1960, the world watched anxiously. The country was rich, abundant in copper, cobalt, diamonds and uranium, but it was deliberately unprepared for self-governance. The Belgians had ruled brutally and left quickly, leaving behind chaos, tribal rivalries, and a fragmented administration. It was into this storm that Patrice Lumumba stepped. Young, passionate, idealistic, and deeply committed to a unified, independent Congo. Lumumba wasn't just a politician, he was a symbol of hope. He spoke of pan-Africanism, dignity, and a future where Congo's resources would benefit its people, not foreign powers. But he also spoke too boldly for the world of 1960. At his independence speech, he openly confronted Belgian King Baudouin, reminding the world of the colonizers' atrocities. That speech made headlines. It also signed his death warrant. Caught in the Cold War crossfire, Lumumba found himself isolated. Western powers feared his alignment with the Soviet Union. Belgium plotted his removal. The UN stood paralyzed. And in the shadows, his supposed ally, Joseph Désiré Mobutu, struck. Backed by the CIA and Belgian interest, Mobutu staged the coup, arrested Lumumba, and handed him over to his enemies in Katanga. There, Lumumba was beaten, tortured, and executed. His body is dissolved in acid, final attempt to erase a man whose ideas were already immortal. Mobutu would later rename himself Mobutu Sese Seko Kuko Ngbendu Wazabanga, meaning the all-powerful warrior who goes from conquest to conquest. He also renamed the country Zaire, banned Western suits, and demanded that citizens abandon European names. He wore leopard skin hats, carried a wooden staff, and created an aura of myth around himself while draining the nation's wealth into Swiss bank accounts. Under Mobutu, Congo became a textbook example of a kleptocracy. Billions of dollars in aid and resource revenue were stolen. The country's infrastructure collapsed. Education and healthcare systems decayed. Political opponents were imprisoned, tortured, or disappeared. The press was muzzled. Elections were farcical, and fear was law. And yet, Zaire was respected on the international stage, if only because Mobutu played the game of the Cold War masterfully, aligned with the West against communism while running his country into the ground. And now, in modern-day Congo, a strange nostalgia has begun to whisper among the people. You hear it in Kinshasa's market, in the countryside, and on talk shows. Under Mobutu, the country was respected. There was order. At least he kept the dollar stable. To the outside world, this nostalgia may seem absurd. Mobutu ruled with an iron fist, looted the state dry, and murdered the man who could have changed everything. But nostalgia doesn't grow from facts, it grows from pain. from the disappointments of today. The Congo, now the DRC, remains plagued by poverty, warlords, corruption, and foreign exploitation. In a landscape of unfulfilled promises, even a dictator's stability starts to look like a kind of golden age. What's often forgotten in this nostalgia is that Mobutu's order came at the price of blood and silence. Yes, there was a strong currency, but no freedom. Yes, there was respect abroad, but not dignity at home. The roads were paved, but they led to palaces, not schools, and the dreams of Lumumba, the dreams of a sovereign people, masters of their own destiny, were buried under decades of theft and fear. The irony is cruel. The man who betrayed Congo's independence, who murdered its greatest visionary, is now remembered fondly by some, simply because what came after him has been just as cruel, just as broken, but memory can be deceiving. Mobutu didn't preserve Lumumba's dream, he hijacked it, painted it in leopard print and sold it to the world as authenticity. In the final reckoning of history, Patrice Lumumba stands as a martyr, not of failure, but of sabotage. He died too soon to build the country he envisioned. Mobutu, on the other hand, lived long enough to become both a tyrant and, in the eyes of some, a patriarch, a dangerous illusion for a country still trying to reclaim its soul. So, the Congolese people face a tragic dilemma. Do they mourn the dreamer who never ruled? Or do they salute the dictator who ruled for too long? One gave his life for Congo's future, the other stole it. And so the ghost of Mobutu still haunts the people of Congo. Not because he was just or wise or visionary, but because everything that came after him has failed to exorcise the demons he left behind. The nostalgia some Congolese express for Mobutu today is not rooted in a love for dictatorship. It is not an endorsement of his looting, his repression, or his betrayal of Lumumba's dream. It is a reaction, a desperate comparison born out of disappointment and despair. 2 decades after Mobutu was ousted, the Democratic Republic of Congo remains a nation suspended between promise and paralysis. It is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of natural resources. Gold, diamond, cobalt, oil, and coltan flow beneath its soil, but its people are amongst the poorest on earth. The schools are collapsing, the roads are broken, and in some villages, the state does not exist at all. Armed rebellions continue to rage in the eastern provinces, often backed or manipulated by foreign powers, most notably Rwanda, which has been accused of pillaging Congolese minerals under the guise of security. The same Rwanda that once claimed to be a victim of history now acts as a quiet occupier in Congo's resource-rich regions. The Congolese army is underpaid, under-equipped, and demoralized. Entire towns live in fear, not of the government, but of militias who rule with impunity. Meanwhile, the political class in Kinshasa drowns in corruption and incompetence. Public offices are sold, not earned. Infrastructure projects are announced with pomp and never completed. Foreign aid disappears. Promises are made every election cycle, only to evaporate once power is secured. The dreams of Lumumba, of dignity, sovereignty, and unity have been replaced by a government that often seems more interested in self-preservation than nation building. In that vacuum of leadership, in that sea of betrayal, the shadow of Mobutu becomes a mirage of order. People remember the days when the currency had value, when the streets were clean in the capital, when the national anthem played proudly, and Zaire appeared to matter on the world stage, even if that respect was hollow. propped up by Cold War alliances and stolen wealth. But that nostalgia is not for Mobutu himself. It is for a time when the illusion of governance at least masked the rot. Today, the rot is visible and the mask is gone. The tragedy is not just that Congo lost Lumumba. The tragedy is that the country has still not found anyone who can carry his dream forward. A dream of a Congo that is not merely rich in soil, but rich in justice, in dignity, and in opportunity. Until that dream is realized, the people will keep looking backwards, not because the past was better, but because the present keeps betraying them.